After reaching the playoffs in May 2000, there was a real determination in the Millwall squad to make amends this time round. Essentially, it was the same squad of players, just Willie Guerre added in the close season. The campaign opened against fellow promotion favourites Reading, and it took Millwall just 5 minutes to open their account. Timmy Cahill heading home that Stephen Reid cross. In the second half, it was to be Cahill who would do the trick again, as Neil Harris battles for possession on the right-hand side. The ball breaks to Cahill, and his low drive made it 2-0. Cahill, in actual fact, thought he completed a hat-trick towards the end. The ball being returned into the penalty area. A real scramble, Cahill heading home, but the linesman's flag had ruled it offside, and he had to settle for the 2, but the perfect start to the new campaign as the Lions won by those 2-0. Next up, a 7-goal thriller at Notts County. Paul Moody with the opener. The equaliser for County there with that lob from Craig Ramage. Stephen Reid had waited a long time to open his league account. He did it in style to make it 2-1. When Harris added a third, it looked like game over. But Ramage had other ideas. This free header reducing the arrears for County. County's equaliser was another far post header, this time from Mark Stallard. But the scoring wasn't over. Mark Bircham producing the pick of the bunch in the dying minutes to give the Lions a 4-3 victory. Into the Worthington Cup and a trip to the Withdean Stadium. A debut here for young Kevin Braniff, and he certainly marked that debut in style with this opener. The equaliser for Brighton was somewhat controversial. A free kick given here and then taken from here by Paul Watson. Warner, no chance. Millwall, though, got their noses in front in the first leg. The ball breaking out to David Livermore, and he dispatched this left footer into the far corner. There was still some work, though, for Tony Warner in the Millwall goal. A couple of point-blank saves to keep his side's noses in front going into that second leg. Back to league action at the Den, and Wycombe Wanderers the visitors. An early goal this time from Neil Harris seemed to set the Lions on their way. But it wasn't to be. A scrambled equaliser here from Andy Baird, making it 1 apiece. If the defending for that one wasn't the best, this was a real howler. A back pass from Lawrence, the ball trickling towards the goal line. In the end, it was Danny Bullman on hand to turn it over for the winning goal. A couple of sendings off for Millwall, Livermore and Reid dismissed, didn't help their cause. However, they thought they had got the equaliser. Kevin Braniff with yet another superb strike, but this one mysteriously ruled out, presumably for offside. Back in the Worthington Cup, Brighton came to the Den for the second leg of that tie, and Christoph Kinney's wonder strike seemed to put them out of the competition. Goal of the season, contender number 1 then from the Belgian winger, giving the keeper no chance. But this was a far from convincing Millwall display, and it was no real surprise when Albion got back into the tie. The cross came in from the right-hand side from Paul Brooker, and Nathan Jones was on hand to sweep it home. 1-1 then the final score. The Lions through 3-2 on aggregate. Back at the Den, and Dave Tuttle's effort was turned aside by Swansea keeper Roger Freestone, who was in outstanding form the following Saturday. The chances kept coming thick and fast, but it seemed as though Freestone would deny the Lions their victory. On this occasion, as Michael Gilks looks up and plays the ball inside, it's a neat and patient passing move from the Lions. O'Dunsey involved, finding Christoph Kinney, but yet again, the Swans keeper turns the ball aside. This perhaps the best save of the bunch. The ball knocked out for a corner, and as the dying seconds approached, it seemed a point would be Millwall's reward until Harris popped up with that header to ensure that the narrowest of victories was achieved. Harris doesn't score too many goals with his head, but once he'd lost his marker here, it was a matter of scoring from just a couple of yards. Northampton were the next visitors to the Den, and they too had a goalkeeper in form in Keith Welsh. This time, though, there was to be no way through, and Northampton Town took full advantage. It was that man, Marco Golo, so often a thorn in Millwall's flesh, who did the damage after coming on as a substitute. No danger here, but after a neat 1-2, it was a sublime finish. Millwall losing by 1-0, their second home defeat of the season. Next up was a local derby at Griffin Park, Brentford, and it wasn't to go Millwall's way. A long through ball there from Rowlands, and Andy Scott in a one-on-one situation with Warner did the business to put Brentford in front. Again, Millwall at 6s and 7s for much of this one, until Nethercott popped up with a header which almost went across the line itself. Neil Harris, though, on hand to force the ball over. The significance of that result was only to be felt the following day. There's the nationwide league table showing Millwall in 13th place. It wasn't enough to keep Keith Stevens and Alan McCleary in their job after just 6 games. Ray Harford and Steve Gritt took temporary charge for the Worthington Cup second round tie against Ipswich Town. Barely fit, but Paul Eiffel was on hand to give the Lions a surprise lead. There were chances aplenty at both ends. Ipswich certainly had their fair share, but it was Millwall who were able to convert theirs. Neil Harris there setting up young Tommy Tyne, who made a rampaging run before Tim Cahill took over and buried the second goal. Cahill's strike there from the edge of the box, giving Millwall real hope of progressing through to the third round. Back to league action once more, and Oxford United were to prove the whipping boys. Sam Parkin, within 2 minutes of his league debut, putting the Lions in front. He was on loan from Chelsea. It really was a dream start for young Parkin. Some woeful defending from Oxford helped Neil Harris to increase the lead. After that, it really was just a question of how many. Matt Lawrence began this move, a little ball inside to Timmy Cahill, and really, as Paul Eiffel looks to tease the defender, the Oxford defenders are just bystanders. Eventually, it was Harris on hand to turn it in and make it 3-0. Into the second half, and the floodgates were still wide open. As so often, Matt Lawrence, a supporting attacker, finding Eiffel on the right-hand side. Eiffel's cross into the box, and there, completely unmarked, was Parkin to get his second and Millwall's fourth. Still, Millwall weren't finished though, and this time Neil Harris showed all his close control and dexterity to complete his hat-trick. Millwall 5, Oxford United 0. Back to the Worthington Cup, and this really wasn't Millwall's night. That, in fact, was a perfectly good tackle from Joe Dolan. He was sent off, and Ipswich were awarded a penalty. A superb save, though, from Tony Warner kept hopes alive that Millwall could still progress. The turning point, though, came late in the second half with this challenge from Stephen Reid. A bookable offence, possibly, but referee Andy Hall reached for his card. It was a red one, and the Lions were down to 9 men. Almost immediately, the breakthrough came for Ipswich. David Johnson with the header to make it 2-1 on aggregate to the Lions. The 9 men managed to hold on until 2 minutes from full time, when Titus Bramble with this diving header tied the scores up. There was still time for Millwall to snatch it, though. A great save here from Richard Wright, denying Tim Cahill and sending the tie into extra time. The outcome by now, though, was inevitable as the Lions tied. Matt Holland getting the third for Ipswich. This was a cruel torture for the tired Millwall lads as Jim Magilton added a fourth. And then, just to rub salt into the wounds, David Johnson with his second of the game made it 5-0 on the night, 5-2 on aggregate. New boss Mark McGee took charge for the first time at Peterborough 4 days later and saw Joe Dolan give his new charges the lead. Goal of the season contender number 2 coming up here. Lucas Neal, recently returned from the Olympics in Australia, produced this stunner. It wasn't all one-way traffic. Barry Fry's side had their opportunities, and Tony Shields was on hand to score and make it 2-1. Normal service, though, soon to be restored. Sam Parkin with a near-post header, and surely the points were heading back down the A1. The perfect start then for the new manager, Timmy Cahill, completing the rout. 4-1 to the Lions, and they were on a roll.
You were there at Ipswich when, in spite of the result, the performance was excellent, so that must have been encouraging for you.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Oxford game in particular, obviously, at that point I had already spoken to the chairman. I didn't know for sure I was going to get the job, but I came along to the Oxford game with my friend, and we sat at the back of the stand. You know, and my first thought was, you know, why do they need a manager, you know, sort of thing, because they obviously went out and trounced Oxford. But clearly the chairman felt something was needed just to give them a little bit extra, and I was grateful that eventually, given what I saw against Oxford, they gave me the job.
Things got off to a pretty storming start at Peterborough, as I recall, and in actual fact things went very well for the first few games.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like when many times when a new manager comes in, there is a fresh impetus. There certainly was that then when I arrived. Everyone was playing for their places, and everyone obviously is trying to impress the new manager. Because I'd come at a stage where the season already started, I didn't have weeks of pre-season to sort of bed in. So I had to make it clear to the squad immediately that there could be no kind of honeymoon period, if you like, that the day I arrived was the day that we had to start a relationship. That was the day that I had to be allowed to, if I felt like it'd be critical, and that they had to accept it immediately, that that they couldn't sort of get to know each other, you know, that we didn't have time for that. So it had to be instant. And in fairness, I found a bunch of lads who were so open-minded and so willing that there was no problem whatsoever. I mean, I felt very comfortable, you know, after days here, never mind weeks. So the players themselves, Steve Gritt and Ray Harford in particular, but you know, the other backroom staff helped that, because they helped to, you know, keep me informed as to who was who and what character was what and what to expect from different people. So that made it all the easier for me.
Into October, and Millwall had a high noon shootout with Luton Town. Mark Ovendale was alert to turn this effort from Neil Harris around for a corner. Luton had their chances on this Sunday, And one fell for Gavin McGowan, who blazed over, but he really should have done better. But 8 minutes from the end, Millwall got the all-important goal. Christoph Kinney on the right-hand side, swinging over across, and there was McGowan to put it into his own net to give Millwall the 3 points. The following Saturday, Bury came to town, and it took Millwall 25 minutes to open their account with Neil Harris. Goal number 2 started from deep. Scott Fitzgerald playing his only match for the Lions last season. Matty Lawrence crossing the halfway line. Christoph Kinney was coming outside. He eventually gets the ball, and there was Lucas Neal with a powerful header for 2-0. A perfect header there from Lucas, giving Paddy Kenny no chance whatsoever. Into the second half, and Neil Harris was showing that he can also provide goals as well as score them. Dave Livermore with the glancing header into the back of the net. That was Dave Livermore's second goal of the season, and the midfield were to chip in with many goals throughout the year. The fourth goal started deep inside the Millwall half. Long ball forward from Dave Livermore, and when indecision from the Bury defence on the halfway line led in Neil Harris, the finish was sublime. What a great goal from a great striker. Next up was Bristol City, and an early strike from Sam Parkin from Lucas Neal's free kick gave Millwall a lead. Neal's free kick there, perfectly placed for Parkin to head over the top of Phillips, the Bristol City goalkeeper. Millwall were looking for the second goal to kill off Bristol City. Lucas Neal's cross, Richard Sadlier at the back post against the woodwork. So close. But the visitors caught Millwall asleep. A quick free kick by Brian Tinian, and Scott Murray drilled home deep into injury time to steal a point from the Den. Millwall might have considered a late goal against Bristol City, but at the Britannia Stadium against Stoke City, amazingly, Millwall were in front after 19 seconds. Tony Warner with the long clearance, a deft touch from Sadlier, and there was that man Harris again. Clinical finishing from the edge of the area. Inside one, and over the keeper. It didn't take long for Stoke City to equalise though. Peter Thorne, 1-1. Minutes later, a static Millwall defence, and Thorne again. The Lions were behind. But just before half-time, Millwall equalised, and it was that man Harris again. I think I'll celebrate with Tony Warner. Hey, Tony. Beautiful curling effort. Gave the keeper no chance whatsoever. But a late goal once more was the undoing, and Chris Iwalumu, with just minutes left, put Stoke in front. Richard Sadlier with 2 goals, his first of the season, on the following Tuesday, gave us the 3 points at Swindon Town. Cambridge were next up at the Den, and Steve McAnespie gave Richard Sadlier an early chance with a poor back pass. Sadlier bullied his way through to roll the ball into empty net. Patient build-up for number 2 started with Stephen Reid. Timmy Cahill looked for the opening. Harris swept it over to the other side where Matty Lawrence was on hand. Lucas Neal provided the overlap. And there was Richard Sadlier for number 2. Pinball. Lucas Neal plays it forward, and once more Neil Harris is putting the Cambridge defence under pressure to score with ease. Past Perez. Harris with yet another coolly taken effort. Jonas Axeldale for Cambridge managed to pull a goal back late on, past the dejected Tony Warner and the Millwall defenders looking on.
Into November and another trip to the Potteries, this time to face Port Vale. A neat build-up involving David Livermore, and he'd be the man to provide the finish coming up in a moment. Good work from Stephen Reid down the left-hand side, and when his cross was knocked out as far as Livers, there was another spectacular strike into the bottom corner. Dave Livermore certainly doesn't score too many tap-ins, and this was another goal of the season contender. Sorry about the picture quality here, and sorry about the defensive quality too. Dave Brammer allowed to waltz in to equalise. 1-1 the final score. You weighed in with a few goals yourself. Remember a particularly good one at Port Vale. Was that one of the high points of the season for you?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't really score many goals, so whenever I score, it's an unbelievable feeling. Yeah, Port Vale. Yeah, I was proud of that one. It was a good strike. It's a shame we didn't go on to win the game, but it was a vital point against a good team. As Port Vale proved this season, they're a decent side.
Wigan not the happiest of hunting grounds for Millwall over the past 2 or 3 seasons, and so it was to prove again. This effort from Liddell just clipping the crossbar. Liddell it was, though, who would ultimately do the damage. A cross coming in from Neil Redfern. He didn't quite catch this right, but it looped over Tony Warner and gave the keeper no chance. Millwall once more had the lion's share of the possession and indeed the better opportunities, but keeper Roy Carroll was in brilliant form to keep them at bay. Time after time, Millwall rampaged through, and this was yet another fine stop from the Irishman. Back to the Den, and Wrexham with the visitors. Paul Moody producing the winning goal from an excellent Paul Eiffel cross. Moods has never been afraid to put his head in where it hurts, and this was his first goal of the season. He was to get many more. The scoreline could have been more emphatic with a little more fortune. Slip sliding away there is Dave Livermore, but his shot is across the face of goal. When the ball's returned in by Eiffel, it eventually is cleared away to safety, or so Wrexham thought, but Dolan kept battling. Reid picked it up, and this one crashes against the bar. Into the FA Cup and a Sunday lunchtime kickoff, and yet another early goal for the Lions. A little debatable this, was it in or out of the area? The referee said inside, and it's a penalty. Neil Harris, as ever, so clinical from the spot, and the part-timers were behind. Full credit to Lee RMI. They made a real game of it, But once Mark Bircham had thrashed this one into the net for number 2, it was game over. The golfers amongst you will appreciate this one. Little sand wedge into the top corner from Paul Moody. 3-0 the final scoreline, and at long last, Millwall through to the second round of the FA Cup. Let's see this one again. Well, Tiger Woods would be proud of that, wouldn't he? Back to league action at the bog-like Memorial Ground. But Neil Harris does a sand dance through the Rovers' defence to put the Lions in front after some 4 minutes. Rovers, though, were already fighting for their lives, and Tony Warner had to stretch to turn that one aside. Dave Livermore could and should have made it 2, but unfortunately this again rebounded from the post. He was made to pay shortly afterwards as Rovers equalised through Martin Cameron. Stephen Reid, though, was to have the last word. This somehow found a way through. Millwall 2-1 winners, in spite of finishing with 10 men when Stuart Nethercutt was sent off late on. A chance there for Neil Harris to give Millwall the lead at Oldham. In the end, Harris was the provider as Tim Cahill was on hand to win the game and send Millwall to the top of the table for the first time.
Into December, and the top of the table clash against Rotherham United. David Artell gave Rotherham the lead, but Stephen Reid struck back with a splendid equaliser. It wasn't long before Reedy put Millwall in front. Ifield's cross, and there was Stephen Reid teeing it up, making a bit of room and thrashing a low ball past the Rotherham keeper. Controversially, Rotherham had a throw and it was clearly Millwall's ball. Artell with the throw into the penalty area. Millwall just could not get it clear. And Alan Lee was on hand to square the scores. Another throw-in a similar area. And I'm afraid once more, the same result. Lee once more, sending Rotherham to the top of the table. Next up was the LDV Vans Trophy. Mark McGee decided to rest a few players, but Millwall still looked good on the night. Christoph Kinney was on hand to roll into the empty net. It wasn't long before number 2. Christoph Kinney over the top and into the back of the net. What a finish. Was it a shot or was it a cross? Who cares? Millwall's third in the second half after Richard Sadlier was brought to the ground. Christoph Kinney there pointing to his chest. He wanted the penalty, he took the penalty, and he just scored. Mark Bircham, skipper for the night, giving Christoph a big hug. Number 4, Paul Ifield, towards the edge of the area, shot, saved, and Richard Sadler said thank you very much. Northampton's consolation came very late on with a shot from James Gould past Willie Guerre, who was making his debut. A Sunday FA Cup meeting with Wickham in the second round, and that man Martin Taylor was once more in superb form, denying Neil Harris. Paul Moody's follow-up into the side netting. The pitch was looking pretty awful at this stage of the season. Moody in on goal, against the post, and Wickham clear. Richard Sadlier bullies his way through, shoots, underside of the bar. The following week, once more another top of the table clash. Millwall took on Walsall, who, yes, you remember, played in our away kit. Neil Harris got behind the defence, held the ball up into Richard Sadlier, who controlled it, laid it back for Mark Bircham, who thumped the ball into the back of the net. Millwall were in front, and he was the Millwall skipper and made everybody aware of it. Tremendous shot from Birch. Goal number 2 was brilliant. Started inside our own half. Paul Eiffel, on one of his runs, he would deliver a deep cross to the back post. Neil Harris would tee it up, and Stephen Reid, who had ran from inside his own half, buried the second. Millwall were back on top. As the table showed, that win sent Walsall down to 3rd, with arch rivals Wigan in between the pair of us. Cup replay at Wycombe Wanderers, and they took the lead early on through Rammel. There were suggestions, of course, that that goal was offside once more. But Joe Dolan was on hand to level the scores halfway through the first half, getting his long legs wrapped around that one. But it was to be the end of our FA Cup journey for this season. Paul McCarthy with his overhead kick, and Millwall were out, and Wycombe were to go on to the semi-finals. Next, it was to Dean Court, and Millwall took a lead through Christoph Kinney, stabbing the ball home. Bournemouth were to equalise through Jermaine Defoe, who was on a run of scoring in consecutive games. But Millwall were to go on to claim the 3 points. Tony Warner's long clearance, Mooney flicks on, and there was Harris to score with ease. He went towards the fans to get some toast for his reward. Harris, the toast of SE16, after netting yet another winner. Boxing Day, Colchester, and they were certainly beaten up. Neil Harris inside the area once more. Yet another finish. Trickery from Kinney for goal number 2. Just too high for Moody. Harris retrieved it, but he found Moody, and it was 2-0. Moody totally unmarked. Goal number 3, and Harris was the provider once more. This time Moody was even closer to stab past Woodman. 3-0. Richard Sadlier, this time through to Neil Harris, and Woodman just didn't have a strong enough hand to keep that ball out of the back of the net as Harris scored his second. Colchester could only score through Robbie Ryan, putting it past Tony Warner, and Harris was to go on to complete a hat-trick. But Eiffel was getting on the scoring act first, keeping a remarkable scoring record against the Essex side. Eiffel into the penalty area. Richard Sadlier somehow managed to get a penalty. The referee had already given it before Cahill's shot. And Neil Harris steps up for a hat-trick and goal number 6. Notts County was to be Mark McGee's first home defeat in the league. The side, wearing a bright orange, cut their way through the Millwall defence and took an early lead for Andy Hughes. It wasn't long before Millwall were back on level terms. County failed to clear their lines, and Paul Ifill rifled home for 1-1 to his delight. Notts County defender there, completely caught out by Ifill. But County went back in front once more. Run down the far side by Liebird. He pulled the ball back, and there was Hughes again to put County back in front. Millwall levelled just before half-time. Harris twists, turns, ricochets, and there was Moody's outstretched right foot. 2-2. Christoph Kenne had got himself sent off earlier in the second half, so Millwall were down to 10 men, and they were to pay for that in the dying minutes when Gary Hours stepped up to thump a low shot past Tony Warner.
It was to be a happy new year for Mark McGee as he took his new charges to his old stamping ground, Reading. Neil Harris hooking home the first goal. Goal number 2 from this corner. It was Harris again from no more than a yard. The third came from a former Millwall player. That was Ricky Newman with a header past his own keeper. It's still the first half and Millwall 3-0 to the good. Harris's hat-trick completed from the penalty spot as he was hauled back quite clearly there by John Mackey. Harris himself 4-0. The visiting fans just couldn't believe it. Reading staged something of a comeback. That header there from Sammy Igoe giving the Royals a semblance of hope. A penalty claim there, and it was awarded. This time it's Darren Caskey to score. A 4-3 scoreline made it seem a lot closer than it actually was. This effort from Jamie Curitan was actually the last kick of the game. That hat-trick at Reading, perhaps the highlight of your season?
Yeah, definitely. It was a fantastic game to play in. Obviously, it's more of a local derby this year, especially being at the top of the table, both teams. As it turns out, it could be one of those games that whoever wins would won the game probably would go up, as it's turned out. And for us to win the game so comfortably with such a large following of supporters, it was a magic day.
Harris was rested from the start as Millwall took on Swindon in the LDV Vans Trophy. Not a classic encounter this, it must be said. The Lions had most of the chances, went close on several occasions, but they just couldn't find a way through. Kinne's corner, and yet again the woodwork, and then the woodwork once more kept Millwall out. Joe Dolan flicks on yet another corner kick, and Harris on as a substitute is also denied by the post. And so to penalty kicks. Swindon in front with the first. A rarity this, Neil Harris missing from the spot. Willie Guerre in the Millwall goal keeps his side very much in the picture. Well, a little bit of luck there, I think, for Lucas Neal. Timmy Cahill, though, is denied. Danny proves to be invincible for Swindon. whilst Richard Sadler keeps the Lions interested. After Halliday had scored for Swindon, it was left to Christoph Kinney, but that was a woeful effort, and Millwall were out of the competition. Back to league action, and this was the big one. Bête Noire, Wigan Athletic, the visitors. Paul Moody making his point with the first goal. This was to be Mood's day. Neil Harris with the cross, Mood stretching to put the Lions 2-0 up. This incident probably wasn't the turning point. Millwall already coasting to victory when Simon Howarth stamps on the back of Tim Cahill and is about to get his marching orders. A third goal was to come Millwall's way in the second half. Moody the man to score it, a hat-trick for him, setting up a first victory over the Latics in 7 attempts. The visitors got their consolation. The ball bouncing off the bar, rebounding once more from Little's effort, and eventually it was thrashed home by Neil Roberts. Too little, too late. With Millwall on a high, Bournemouth visited the Den looking for revenge from that pre-Christmas defeat. That header there from Klaus Jorgensen, the only goal of the game. Millwall's fourth home defeat of the season. They certainly might have got something out of the game. A tricky run here from Lucas Neal, a pull back, but it was that looked a suspicion of handball as Bircham's effort was cleared off the line. Bristol Rovers soon found themselves a goal down when they visited South London. Timmy Cahill once more at the far post, and again getting up so well. That was the positive side of Cahill. The negative coming up now. He got involved with Dwayne Plummer. Plummer the first to see a red card, and if Tim thought he was going to get away with it, he was soon disabused of that notion as he too was given an early bath. Another rampaging run down the right from Matt Lawrence set up goal number 2. Harris's header back off the post, but Paul Moody on hand to complete the job. Moods was involved in goal number 3. Richard Sadler working his way inside, using all his strength to get the ball away to Lucas Neal. Matt Lawrence coming inside onto his left foot, stretching, and Neil Harris the first to react. Goalkeeper Nick Culkin bringing him to the ground, and Harris completes the job. 3-0, and Bristol Rovers are done. Sadly, that was the end of Joe Dolan's season. He broke his leg against Rovers, whilst Willie Guerre made his Millwall debut and kept a clean sheet. Guerre was on form once more at Colchester, but it was Paul Eiffel who got the only goal of the game in appalling conditions at Layer Road. United staged something of a second half comeback, but this was as close as they came to equalising. A curling effort from Gavin Johnson which hit the bar. A Sunday lunchtime in Swansea, and Neil Harris almost gave Millwall an early lead, denied by that last-ditch clearance. 16 corners forced by the Lions. They couldn't convert any of them though. Tim Cahill going close there. From yet another, the ball eventually in the net, but Neil Harris penalised for a foul. A televised game against Brentford on the agenda the following Friday. Lloyd Owusu missing a gilt-edged opportunity for the visitors. The winner was scored by Tim Cahill. It wasn't a classic match. That didn't matter. Cahill's the all-important contribution. The slow-mo replay shows that Tim slightly mistimed his effort, but it was perfectly placed to beat the Bees keeper. And so to the Sixfield Stadium, and a 6-goal thriller against Northampton Town. Paul Moody putting Millwall in front. A free kick from Stephen Reid, and it was just turned in by Neil Harris. 2-0 up and coasting. However, Northampton didn't lay down and die. A scramble in the box following a corner, and Gabbiadini, not for the first time this season, scored past the Millwall keeper. That the first goal, though, conceded by Willie Guerre. 2 penalties coming up now, both conceded by Matt Lawrence. The shot coming in, all a little bit clumsy, both players going down in a heap, the referee pointing to the spot. And Dave Savage, the former Lion, gave Guerre no chance with that spot kick. Again, Matt Lawrence adjudged the guilty party. Once more, a tangle of legs. This time, it was Forrester who went down, but it was Savage once more who would be given the responsibility from the penalty spot. Guerre guessed right and got a hand to it, but Northampton were in front. Millwall looked like getting nothing out of this game, but then, of all people, Christoph Kinney popped up with a header to make it 3 apiece. This a collector's item, the height of Kinney, so telling in the 6-yard box. Oxford United already look dead and buried by this stage, in spite of the presence of Alan McCleary. Paul Moody, returning to the Manor ground, put another nail in their coffin. Willie Guerre set up the second goal. End-to-end stuff here. A thrusting run from Stephen Reid. He overran it, in fact, slightly, but there was Dave Livermore rampaging through the middle. 2-0 at half-time. That the full-time score too. Here's Livers, cool as you like. No chance for the keeper. I remember you got another very important goal at Oxford at a time when, you know, the pressure was on. Other teams were winning around us. It seemed to be a formality, but it was a hard-fought victory, that one.
Yeah, difficult game. I mean, we were top of the table, they were bottom. Potential slip up maybe. I mean, it would have been good headlines for Oxford if they would have beat us. But no, we went into the game knowing that it could have been a sticky game, but we come out with a good result. We went in 2-0 at half time, and then really second half was a non-event. We were just happy to keep what we had and get the 3 points.
Into March, and Peterborough were the visitors at the Den. Jason Lee was to see red in the first half for tangling with Sean Dyche. It was his second bookable offence, and he was off. He was later to be joined by Andy Clark in picture, as Peterborough went down to 9 men. Stuart Nethercott came the closest for the Lions with this powerful header, but it was against the crossbar. Up to Lancashire the following Tuesday, and Millwall were given the perfect start. Neil Harris kept his concentration, kept his feet, and steered the ball into the back of the net to put Millwall in front. But lack of concentration at the back allowed Berry in, and Colin Cram scored with ease. Millwall were to concede another late goal. John Newby, on loan from Liverpool, was there to crash home the winner, and Millwall were to leave Lancashire pointless. Stuart Nethercott opened Millwall's account for the home win against Luton Town with his first goal of the season, and wasn't he pleased? Nethers have been getting closer and closer in recent weeks, and he finally got one past the Luton keeper. Richard Sadlier didn't pull out of this challenge and was inches wide. Friday night and to Bristol. Millwall were rocked back on their heels with this early strike from Lewis Carey. Millwall continued to push forward, and at the start of the second half got their rewards when Harris was hauled down inside the penalty area. Harris scored to the delight of the travelling fans. But the game was to turn crazy. Thorpe, who used to be a teammate of Sean Dyche's, was sent off for that kick. Beadle and Moody were tangling inside the penalty area. The referee saw it, red for Beadle, and eventually red for Moody. Another controversial decision was to mar the game. Sean Dyche was adjudged to have handled the ball, but the assistant referee on the far side was very late in waving his flag. Did it have anything to do with the mass of people behind him? Lee Matthews, on loan from Leeds United, steered the ball past Willie Guerre. Neil Harris was also to see red in this stormy encounter in the dying minutes. So to Wycombe Wanderers. Neil Harris here, clearly seen onside, put the ball in the back of the net, but the referee and the linesman ruled it out. Martin Taylor was once again in outstanding form for Wycombe, denying Neil Harris there from distance. Up to the Midlands to face Walsall, and Dave Livermore had an early chance to score, but was denied on the line by Aaron Eldey. Tony Warner, recalled to the side, was in good form himself, making saves. But Christoph Kinney had a chance late on, but rather scuffed his shot straight at James Walker. So that was 0-0, and Millwall was sitting nicely in second place behind surprise leaders Rotherham United.
April was to prove the key month. 4 home games coming up in 11 days, which would decide Millwall's fate. Stoke City then first, a scramble inside the box. Richard Sadler, though, kept his cool and drilled the ball into the bottom corner. He was on fire in this game. This was a passionate Millwall performance. No let up for Stoke from start to finish. The second goal from Reed's cross, headed in by Tim Cahill. Millwall could have had more. This is trademark Cahill, arriving late from midfield and getting between the two defenders to score. The perfect way to set up the top of the table clash with Rotherham. And it wasn't long before Millwall were in front. Timmy Cahill being set up by Richard Sadlier, and he could hardly miss. Goal number 2 wasn't far from coming either. Cahill giving instructions. I fell with the ball in, and there was Reed. I'll try again. Past the goalkeeper into the bottom right hand corner. Alan Lee was to see red. A late challenge on Stephen Reed, and that was really problems for Rotherham, because Lee had been one of their better players throughout the season,
and he was to take no further part in the game. Move your head, mate. A third before half-time. Dave Livermore with the cross. Sadlier against the bar. No, it wasn't to be, but there was Claridge following up as the experienced striker he is for his first Millwall goal. Matty Lawrence for Claridge once more, and picked this one out. Beautifully struck and chipped over the goalkeeper for a rousing finish.
Were you surprised at the manner of that victory, at the size of that victory against the team that ultimately proved to be Millwall's biggest rivals?
No, I wasn't. I felt that we knew where their weaknesses were. We obviously knew about their strengths, but we really played on the weaknesses on the day, and yeah, the players couldn't have done any more than they did, and it was just such a magnificent performance. The football we played, you know, it's what Mark's been trying to get the team to do. And I think to a degree we've done it for most of the season, but I just think everything fell into place on that particular day.
To play the way we did, I think we destroyed them like 4-0. It was such a big game. I think a turning point in our league. It proved to us that we can, because we had a bad patch in March and a bit of pressure on us. But then Rotherham came down. It was a big game. We had to win it. I think we proved even that we are the best team in the league. Like we battered them 4-0. Like, so after that game, I think everyone was delighted with the performance. The whole 11 team, it was unbelievable on that day. That's probably our best team performance of the year.
Having reclaimed pole position, there was still plenty of work to be done to hang on to it. Port Vale were the form team at this stage, 16 games unbeaten. Richard Sadler's lone strike, the winner, but the Lions didn't have it all their own way. One of a number of chances created here by Vale. The header coming in, Tony Warner in exemplary form. The fourth and last home game on the trot was against Swindon Town. Swindon defended deeply and defended well and frustrated Millwall for long periods. Stephen Reid there with that pile driver. But Neil Harris, back from suspension, only on the pitch for a short time, and he delivered a quality shot like that. I'm back. Neil openly frustrated at being suspended, with a quality finish once more. Mark Bircham fed Neil Harris as he was looking to try and make it two in the dying moments, but his chip was just over. This looks a tricky encounter on a Tuesday night at the Abbey Stadium. Cambridge battling against relegation. Stuart Nethercott with the opening goal for Millwall from that corner by Reid. This, though, was to be Paul Ifield's night. Reid again in the thick of the action. The ball cleared as far as Ifield. A volley, true and hard, into the bottom corner. Millwall 2 to the good. The Lions hadn't conceded a goal in 607 minutes until Tom Youngs produced this deflected effort to bring Hughes back into the game. But Ifield was to take centre stage, not before Claridge, though, had restored Millwall's 2-goal advantage with this tap-in after Cale's effort had been spilled by the keeper. Stephen Reid shared top billing on the night. He was irrepressible on the wing. His pullback, again a first-time effort from Ifield. This was 4-1. Well, you won't see a better hat-trick than this in a long, long time. This, the pick of the bunch, left foot, top corner, goalkeeper grasping at thin air. 5-1 to the Lions, and everyone now believed and knew that promotion was on the cards.
Millwall could confirm promotion at Wrexham, but they were hit early on when Craig Falconbridge was on the end of a Wrexham build-up to put them in front. There he was, stabbing the ball past Warner. The massive Millwall following were there waiting for Millwall to get the equaliser, and in front of their fans Tim Cahill rose to put the ball into the back of the net. The Millwall fans on in jubilation and jubilation only as Cahill went to the bench to celebrate. With Reading losing at Colchester, this result was academic and Millwall were promoted. Now for the championship.
The aim now is to pick up some medals and win the championship.
Yeah, there's still another job to do. Oldham are going to come down here. They're not going to make it easy for us. But it's just Oldham that stands between us and the title. So I think the boys are going to be really fired up.
Livers, promotion finally achieved at Wrexham. What was your immediate feeling when the final whistle went there?
I don't know. It's hard to explain, really. Just sheer excitement, really. I mean, it's a great achievement. Worked hard all season for it. So, yeah, just for that 5 minutes or so, I just really didn't think of anything else but we're promoted. So, yeah, it's an unbelievable feeling. Yeah.
So this was the table going into the last week of the season. Millwall top only on goal difference. A victory against Oldham would land them the title. 18,500 fans in party mood on May the 5th, 2001. Nothing but nothing was going to spoil their day of celebration. The nerves, of course, were jangling as the players took the field. Rotherham in action at Peterborough at the same time. Whatever Millwall did had to equal or better that of the Millers. With the preliminaries over with, the nerves were jangling in the early encounters, but finally Millwall found the breakthrough. Neil Harris, so often the scorer, but equally often the maker of fine goals, and Paul Moody, his strike partner on this occasion, with yet another brave finish. Harris it is who commits the keeper, and there's only one person who's going to get to that ball, and that's Paul Moody. From behind the goal, we see the determination as Moody slides in. The second, perhaps the best of the game. Another quality finish from a quality player. Neil Harris, well, he finished level top scorer in Division 2 that the First Division will no doubt fear. Into the second half now, Millwall coasting, but perhaps needing a third goal just to make the game completely safe. Stephen Reid provided it. Have you ever seen a ball hit harder than that? Even in slow motion, this looks quick. It was now time for Millwall to turn on their party pieces. Harris with a little step over and chip to the far post, and Moody yet again to score with his head. Harris, a two-footed player, and here's the evidence. His left curls this in. Moody, always a danger in the air. The scoring wasn't finished. Mark Burcham perhaps a little fortunate to get a penalty as he went down under that challenge. The question was, who would take it? Moody on a hat-trick. Harris, though, wanted to win that golden boot. He it was who dispatched the 5th and final goal of the season. Millwall were champions of the 2nd Division. That in fact the last kick of the game. The referee indicates it's time to head for the tunnel. In the dressing room, the celebrations begin in earnest. This had been a long, hard, but ultimately very, very memorable campaign. And so to the presentations. World Cup final referee from 1974, Jack Taylor, was out there presiding, and already a little bit the worse for wear in terms of his suit, which was covered with champagne. Five years in Division 2, it had certainly been a long haul, but this was the moment that the Lions fans had been waiting for. Millwall chairman Theo Pafitis didn't stop smiling for hours. He took over the club in 1997. This was a great moment for him too. And finally the skipper and the boss, Stuart Nethercott and Mark McGee, march forward to receive their acclaim. And in the case of Nethers, the 2nd Division trophy. And so to the lap of honour. This was a day that those 18,500 Lions fans packed in on all 4 sides of the Den will not forget in a hurry. And so Division 1 beckons a very, very promising young squad. And who knows, this could be the start of something big.
Well, Stuart, promotion finally achieved. You must be a very proud captain of Millwall Football Club.
Yeah, definitely. Something that I wanted to achieve here in my time. I've done 3 years here now, and first day I come here, I said I wanted to take this club into the First Division, and it's a great honour for myself and the rest of the lads to be part of the team that's got this club promoted.
This season's been absolutely magnificent. Obviously the personal accolades are very nice. It's nice to be recognised by your own peers, but obviously it's Millwall getting promoted. This is absolutely fantastic. It's been a great season for me. It's the reason why I left Wycombe to come to Millwall was to get promoted, to play First Division football, and that dream's been achieved now.
Many goal scoring records and all sorts of records have gone this season, but you as a defender have had a massive part to play. The defence have kept just I think 3 short of a club record in a season of clean sheets, and you must be very proud of that, along with your fellow defenders and goalkeepers.
Yeah, it's right. You know, it's all worked well. You know, to be honest with you, we haven't really worked a lot on defence this season. You know, I think the manager wanted to be attacking minded. I don't think, you know, I think he'd rather win games 3-1, 3-2s and things like that, just to get the 3 points. I think with our attacking strengths and things like that, the defence have had quite an easy ride of it of late. But you know, we've had to work. We had a month where we had to work hard when the pitches were getting a bit naughty, and you know, we had some scrapes. You know, Colchester was one I can remember where the pitch was a disgrace, and you know, we've come away with a 1-0 win. It's just them sort of results that have got us this promotion, really.
Personally, how's the season gone for you? I mean, you've kept a number of clean sheets. Mark McGee decided that he wanted to have a look at Willie Guerre, and Willie came in and played excellently, kept some clean sheets, and you come back into the side and matched him.
Yeah, I thought I was doing like before I got arrested or dropped or whatever. Willie come in, Willie done like a really great job, and the gaffer just brought it upon himself to bring me back in. Like I'm just happy to be involved in the games, you know, the Warsaw game, the Rotherham games, like the big games, the Stoke games, the Port Vales. Do really important games at important times, and I'm just glad that I was involved in them.
The strikers and the attacking players will gain a lot of the accolades this season for the goals that have been scored, but the defence have been superb throughout the season, with Tony in goal and with Willie in goal, and you know, the change of the centre halves, Joe breaking his leg. But as a bunch, as a group, we've been solid throughout the season, and probably the game at Colchester, when they threw everything at us and we came away off that pitch winning 1-0, was perhaps an even bigger turning point defensively for the club.
Yeah, definitely. That game, as you say, against Colchester, the one against Brentford as well, the one that's televised on Sky, I think we were under the cosh definitely in those 2 games, but we held strong, and I think that just shows what a tight-knit defence we've got. Myself, obviously, say Stuart Nethercott, Daichi, Joe Dolan, Robbie Ryan, the 2 goalies. We've done fantastic this year. I don't know how many clean sheets we've kept, but it's been tremendous. And as you say, your Neil Harrises gets all the praise, and rightly so, for scoring some magnificent goals this season. And unless you score, you don't win, but you also need to keep your clean sheets every now and again as well.
I know that after you'd scored 25 goals last season, you felt that if you could perhaps emulate that total, that there would be every chance that promotion could be achieved, and that's the way that it's turned out.
Yeah, that's right. Obviously scoring 25 last year was very pleasing for me, and obviously you always want to go better than you have the season before. Always said that good strikers score 20 goals every season. So obviously the main aim is to get to that, but once you get near that, you want to get to 25 as soon as possible. It's just a shame the way things have turned out towards the end of the season that I couldn't have gone and got 30.
And a personal high point, if there was one personal moment?
I think Saturday, I would have thought. I think that was our aim at the start of the season, to get into the First Division, and this happened. So, but you know, the goals that I've got and the clean sheets and things like that, it's all helped, and no, it's been good, and I'm pleased to have guided this team into the First Division.
And now what about the First Division? Obviously you were with a Premiership club, you came to Millwall, but with a view to playing at a higher level. Now you've got that chance.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I think any player in their career wants to play as high as they can in the divisions. I'm no different. I would love to play in the Premier League one day. It may never happen, but I've got the chance to play First Division football next season, and at the end of the day, that's only one step away from the Premier League. So, I mean, if you have a good season next season, you never know what can happen there.
And Division 1, we sure we can hold our own?
No, definitely. I don't see no reason. As I said, Bournemouth have done well, even Gillingham have done well, but Preston, you look at them, I think they were the best team in the league last year. But I think, as you say, we've improved this year again.
I don't see why we can't do Preston next year.
And now, what about the First Division? I mean, you know what's required there. How are we going to go?
I think we'll do well. I think with a couple of additions, I'm sure Mark will be looking to bring one or two in to strengthen the squad. But I think with the strength in the squad that we've got, the youth in the squad, we've got one or two very good old heads as well. I see no reason why we shouldn't go and emulate perhaps certainly what Preston have done this season. They've proved that, you know, once you come out of this league and you go into a stronger division, then, you know, with a couple of very shrewd buys, you can compete, and I'm sure that's what we'll be looking to do.
Finally, a short rest before preparing for Division 1, or has that already started?
Yeah, no, it's started already. I mean, I find myself thinking already Division 1. You know, I'm thinking about Division 1 teams. Even when I'm watching my players training now, I'm you know, applying Division 1 standards. It's only one training session, but even so, I mean, that's the way you've got to think.
Now, the First Division, I know as a striker you're a very confident man, and you're very confident that you can do it at a higher level. Now you've got the chance to prove it.
Yeah, it's not just myself, but confidence in the whole team. To get 90 points in the season is a great achievement. And you look at the teams who have gone up the season before, your Prestons and your Burnleys, and they're both in the top 8. And I'd like to think that we're as good as them, if not better, so we can go up next year and give it a real go and hopefully get in the top 6 as well.
Big thank you to you and the players for giving us such a tremendous season.
Well, I mean, we've enjoyed it, and I think that I've been on record already as saying, you know, that particularly over this last period, the 4 home games, for instance, you know, there was no way that any team can cope with winning 4 home games if they don't get the true support of the team, of the supporters. And the supporters gave us every chance of winning those 4 games by being patient, by being behind the team and giving us a vocal and supporting us in numbers, you know, and that was the thing that allowed us to do it.
Following the euphoria of the Championship and promotion to the First Division came the news of Neil Harris' diagnosis with testicular cancer, his operation and ensuing treatment. He should be back fit and well and in action very, very soon. We wish him the very, very best, and we dedicate this record of Millwall's spectacular season to our 28-goal hero, Neil Harris.